everyone, I'm Vibha Chauhan and welcome to Chauhan Class Funda Clear. So from today, I'm going to start a new subject of our Class 9th SST and that is Geography. So in this video, I will explain Class 9th Geography Chapter 1 and that is India, Size and Location. So India, size and location. So you could say that in simple terms, this chapter basically is a kind of introduction for our country. So in this chapter, we will see the size and location of our country, the exact size or exact location of our country. Now, as all of you know that India is one of the ancient civilizations of the world. Now, you might have studied in your lectures of history and in any subject that India is one of the ancient civilizations of the world and has contributed a lot in making the world's history. And from the last 5 decades, there have been developments in our country in almost every field. In some other ways, you could say, in the fields of technology, in the fields of agriculture, in the fields of industries, and overall all kind of economic growth, economic development, you could say. So you could say that India, that is a very big developing country, that is a very prosperous country, you could say. Now in this chapter, we'll see about India, about the size and location of our country. So without ado, let's start our chapter with our first topic, that is location. So location. Now let's discuss first about the location of our country. Now India, if we have to find the location, as all of you know that India is a very vast country and it lies in the northern hemisphere, of the world. Now as all of you know that there is northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. So you have studied about it. So it lies in northern hemisphere and specifically in the northeastern hemisphere, you could say. So in the north and in the east part of the world it lies, and there are longitudinal and latitudinal extents to find the location of our country. Now you might have studied about longitudes and latitudes in your class 6 SST. Now for more information, longitudes are imaginary lines for the time zones of the world, of the earth, you could say, and latitudes are a kind of imaginary lines for the temperature zones on the earth. So you could say that are longitudes and latitudes. Now for any location of any particular place, we must know the longitudes and latitudes of that region. Like for example, if any aeroplane has to take off from London to India, now it has to find the location of our country. It cannot find that it is India or it is. So it has to find the location. Now you might have been thinking that for doing so there is GPS, but even in GPS there must be some location of that particular region, and that's why these longitudes and latitudes are a kind of location of any place. Now they are kind of you could say the point of that place. Like for example, you have studied in mathematics about the place of x and y in graphical, you could say that in graphical studies. So the same happens, same applies in reality. Now to find any place even in India, then you must know the longitudinal extent and the latitudinal extent of that particular place. So if we talk about the location of our country, now let's discuss with the latitudinal extent. Now for latitudinal extent, there is a latitudinal extent of 8 degrees 4 minutes north and you could say that 37 degrees 6 minutes north. Now both are in north, not in south, you could say, because it lies completely in the northern eastern, you could say, that hemisphere, and that's why both latitudinal extent are in north. Now don't get confused that why aren't they in south, you could say. So they aren't in south because India lies completely in the northern part of the world, of the earth, you could say. And if we talk about the longitudinal extent of our country, of our lovely country, then it is the longitudinal extent of our country is about 68 degrees 7 minutes. Now there are 7 minutes because you know that longitudes are for the time zones. So 68 degrees 7 minutes east and 97 degrees 25 minutes east. Now these also are in east because it lies in the northern and eastern hemisphere, northeastern hemisphere. So that's why there isn't any kind of western, you could say. So you could say that these are longitudinal and latitudinal extent of our country. Now these extents are of our mainland, not of that, that mainland that are all states, but there are some islands of India as well, that are Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Lakshadweeps and many more islands. So those aren't counted in our latitudinal and longitudinal extents that we have discussed, because we are talking about the mainland. And you know what, that there is a Tropic of Cancer. Now Tropic of Cancer, that is also latitude. Now you know that Tropic of Cancer that cuts between the 23 degrees 30 minutes. So that cuts India almost into half parts, not in complete half parts, but almost into half parts. Now it passes through the states that are Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Tripura and Mizoram. So these are the states where this Tropic of Cancer passes from. Now this Tropic of Cancer passes through 23 degrees 30 degree, you could say 23 degrees 30 minutes north. Now that is a latitudinal extent, you could say, that passes from our 5 states or 6 states of our country, dividing it into almost 2 half parts. So you could say that is the exact location of our country by latitudinal extent and longitudinal extent. So if you have to go there, now there are in GPS, you have, that in any particular region, the must know things are the longitudinal and latitudinal points of that place. You might have also seen in your movies kind of those extents. So those are just the same things, you could say. Now our next topic is size. Now next topic is size. Now we have talked about the location of our country, of India. Now what about size? Now if we talk about, just as I've said, that India is a vast country. Now India is the 7th largest country in the world. After first is Russia, then Canada, then USA, then China, then Brazil, then Australia and then India. So India is the 7th largest country, and you could say that the size of our country is about 3.28 million square kilometers. So that is about 2.4% of the total land surface of the earth. That is about 3.28 million square kilometers. Now there may be a kind of little bit difference, that in point, that in decimals. So that is a point that have to be noticed as well. That is a very kind of size of our country. And if we talk about the boundaries of our country, then the total coastline boundary of our country is about 7,516.6 kilometers, and the total land boundary is about 15,200 kilometers. So that is about the that total, I have said that total coastline boundaries, including Andaman Nicobar Islands and as well as the Lakshadweep Islands. So total, you could say that coastline is about 7,516.6 kilometers, and total that land boundary is about 15,200 kilometers. Land boundary, as I also know that what it is, the land boundaries that are connecting to any other country. So that is about the size of our country. Now there is one thing that has to be noticed, as I've said, that the latitudinal extent of our country and the longitudinal extent of our country. Now if we look at the time zone of our country, then from Gujarat to Arunachal Pradesh. Now Gujarat, the westernmost part, and Arunachal Pradesh, you could say that the easternmost part. Now there is a time difference of 2 hours. You could say that if that sun rises first in Arunachal Pradesh, and after 2 hours it could be seen from Gujarat. So you could say that in these two states, the western part and the eastern part, there is a time difference of 2 hours. And that's why India has adopted one single time zone. You know what, that it has its own standard time that is called as IST, Standard Time of India or Indian Standard Time. Both are correct. Now you know what, that standard time passes, that longitude, that is also a longitude that passes from 82 degrees 30 minutes. That 82 degrees 30 minutes, you could say that north. Now that passes from that area, and you could say that the region where it passes is from Mirzapur. So the first region where it touches is Mirzapur in Uttar Pradesh. Now this Mirzapur is, you could say that, is very close to the Prayagraj, and that's why sometimes it is given that it passes through Prayagraj, but most specifically it passes through that Mirzapur in our Uttar Pradesh. So that time is adopted by all our countries, that by all states of our country, and that time is plus 5:30 plus 5 hours 30 minutes to the UST time, that is Universal Standard Time. So you know what that GST, that is Greenwich Standard Time or Prime Meridian Time, that is the longitude that passes through the half, you know, that is complete middle point of our earth. So that is adopted as the Universal Standard Time, and that passes through the Greenwich region. So you could say that from that time our standard time is plus 5 hours 30 minutes, that is more 5 hours 30 minutes. So sunrise is there, and after 5 hours 30 minutes it will rise in India. It could be seen from India. But you know what, that we have adopted Indian Standard Time to you know that to vanish the confusion among the people. As all of you know that if there are 2 time zones in our country, then there would be more and more confusion among the people. You will be surprised to know that in America there are 8 time zones. That means that the regions, you could say that, are divided into 8 parts according to time. And in Russia there are 11 time zones. So you could say that is you could say that there will be more and more confusion among the people, and that's why we have adopted our own IST, that is plus 5 hours 30 minutes to the Universal Standard Time. And that is, you could say that is the location of our country and the size of our country. Now our next topic is India and the world. So India and the world. Now here we have seen about the location and size of our country. Now what about the India and the world? Because we are studying India and the contemporary world, so we must know the relationships between India and other countries as well. Now if we talk about India and the world, you could say that there are ocean routes that divide, you know, that ocean routes that connect India to the other countries of Asia. Now through ocean routes, you could say that many countries are connected. Even we have connected it to Europe and parts of Africa and other countries of Asia, the south countries of Asia. So you could say that there are ocean routes. But you know what, but from earlier times, from a long history, there weren't that much ocean routes. There are more and more trades among countries between India and other parts of the world through land routes. You know what, that through mountains, through land routes, because in earlier times there weren't the ocean routes, there weren't any discoveries of ocean routes. People would just you know that travel from the land routes, and that's why there have been more and more land trade among the people, among the India and the other parts of the country. And you could say that there have been a very good connection of India to the other parts of the world. Like for example, the Upanishads of India, the Ramayana and the Panchatantra stories of India have been adopted. You could say that have been spread to the other parts of the country, other parts of the world. Through these, you could say that connections to the world, and there have been more and more spices trade, Muslim, you know that spices, muslin and other kind of clothes, you know, the textiles of India have been in trade with other parts of the world. Like for example, the Europe, you know what, that there have been a very long trade with Europe from a very long history of our country. But after that, you could say that there have been adoption in our country as well. The Greek sculpture and the design of dome and minarets could be seen in our country as well. So you could say that there is a very good connection of our country to the other parts of the world, to Europe, to the parts of Africa, to the South and East Asia, that have been connected well with our country. And you know that the Deccan Peninsula is also, you know, that an area that is covered from 3 sides by water. So the Deccan Peninsula of our country, that is the southern part of our country, has been surrounded by the Indian Ocean. And because Indian Ocean, there is the largest coastline of our country on Indian Ocean, and that's why this ocean was named as Indian Ocean. That is a very big thing indeed, because there are only 5 oceans in the world, and one of them has been named after India. So that is a very good thing, you could say, that has been. And due to that peninsula, Indian Ocean is divided into 2 parts. Now in the west it is known as Arabian Sea, and in the you could say that in the east it is the Bay of Bengal. Now in the Bay of Bengal there are Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and in the Arabian Sea there are Lakshadweep Islands. Now in India, you know what, that there are 28 states and 9 union territories. Now there were earlier 29 states, but after after reorganization of the states after passing law, there have been 28 states and 9 union territories. So that is a kind of India and the world. You know that India, an ocean is named after India due to that peninsula. Now next and last topic of this chapter is India's neighbors. So India's neighbors, so last topic of this chapter. Now India's neighbors, I often know that in India there are 28 states and 9 union territories. And if we talk about the neighboring countries with India, then we will know the more about India. Now if we talk about the neighboring countries, then there are countries which are neighbor to India, that are, now in the north, you know that northeastern part there is China, there is Nepal and Bhutan. There have been neighboring countries of India. Now as I often know that there have been disputes among India and China that isn't have to be talked in this chapter. And if we talk about the western part, then there is Pakistan and Afghanistan, more specifically northwestern part. So there is Pakistan and Afghanistan. Now there have been disputes with Pakistan as well that hasn't to be discussed in this chapter. Now in the eastern part of our country, you know that eastern part there is Bangladesh, and in the southern part there is Sri Lanka and Maldives. Now Sri Lanka, that has been divided from India by the Park Strait, that is a very narrow, you could say, the narrow canal, that is Park Strait. And Maldives, as I often know that the southern is located in the southern part of our Lakshadweep Islands. So Maldives are also islands and are in the southern part of our island, that is Lakshadweep. So you could say that are now some of the neighboring countries, that are the major neighboring countries of our India. And you know what, that these are neighboring countries but have to be discussed more and more, because you know that among the neighboring countries there are some enemies and some good friends as well. Now that is a kind of geopolitics when we talk about geography as well as the politics. So that is a kind of geopolitics that we have to say that these are neighboring countries, and we have to see how there are connections with those countries of our India. Now it is obvious that there will be sometimes disputes and sometimes good friendships. So that you could say that India and its neighbors. So that's about the neighboring countries of India. Now India shares a very good geographical border with the neighboring countries. Now there is one point to be noticed, that if we talk about the total distance from the northernmost part and the southernmost part of our country, then it is 3,214 kilometers, and from western part of the country to the eastern part of the country it is 2,933 kilometers. Now the southernmost part of the country we say Kanyakumari, but it is Indira Pond that got drowned, you know, that got submerged into the ocean when there was tsunami in 2004. And the northernmost part, as all of you know, that is Kashmir. You know that in Jammu and Kashmir there is a point. So that is about the distance between the north and south. North and south there is 3,214 kilometers, and from west to east it is about 2,933 kilometers. So that is all we have discussed in this chapter. Now in this chapter we have seen a kind of introduction to our India. We have seen about the geographical points, about longitudes and latitudes. Now for more information you must know the meanings of longitudes and latitudes. So you must know about their meanings and about their work. So we have seen the extent of longitudes and latitudes of our country, and we have seen about its size. We have seen about the connection of India and the world. Now there is one more thing, one more fact, that there was Suez Canal that opened in Britain, and after the opening of that Suez Canal, the distance among India, between India and the Britain, reduced to 7,000 kilometers, reduced by 7,000 kilometers. So a very big fact you could say. So this is all we have discussed in this chapter. I have discussed all topics and subtopics. Now the next chapters of this book will be covered in the further upcoming videos. So thank you very much.